Rolling along on the early line here, action-packed and a lot of fun, and I just would like to say, it is new week, new money. We're trying to get new week, new money here from Micah Parsons and how much money he is actually going to make. It's the endless saga right now in Dallas as they're in training camp. Let's hear from Jerry Jones on this saga.
So there's always negotiation, and the negotiation is to put the best team on the field. And it's many times it's not even a question of deserving. And in today's salary cap, you've got to have either or. You can't have it all. And so all those things go into the, so to speak, the equation. And the art of the deal is to get the best players out there for the resources that you have under the cap. And so that's what we're doing. That's what this is all about. But I'm here. I do what I do. I love these guys. Frankly, I could be any place in the world, and I want to be right here. I want to be right here with camp. I enjoy these players. I enjoy Micah. But as always, in any relationships, there are different moods at different times of your relationship. That's what it is. Don't lose any sleep over it.
So just to be
That's the
clear,
one thing I would say to our fans. Don't lose any sleep over it.
Joe, here's what I need to know about what Jerry was just rambling on about. Can he just admit that he is a wonderful business person? Look at all the wealth that he's accumulated over his life, right? But then we have to say to ourselves, Jerry, can you just admit you are horrible at being a GM? You are one of the worst general managers we've ever seen in this sport, because you're talking about you need resources and salary cap. When one of these, reporters should have just said, Jerry, if you signed him 2 years ago, you'd make a lot more money on the field to put more players on the field. The same thing with Dak Prescott. Why do you wait so long to sign these guys and then try to say, well, we can't sign everybody because they make too much money? Help me out, Joe. What is Jerry talking about in that clip right there?
But listen, Jerry is so in his element with this. We see it year after year. I mean, honestly, Donnie, he loves this kind of situation here, this back and forth, this negotiating. He did it last year with CeeDee Lamb. Remember, when is CeeDee getting the contract? When is CeeDee? You talked about Ezekiel. He does this all the time to players that aren't just a small part of the team, like his best players who are due for huge paydays. This is what he does, eventually hoping that they'll break down, take less money, and because he wants to be with his teammates. It's just, this is Jerry's element. And this is not a field I think Micah Parsons wants to play on. But you know what? Not going to have a choice here, ultimately. Otherwise, the only one who's going to be losing money if he doesn't show up is Micah Parsons.
The crazy part about this, too, is like Micah has been the good guy all along, always happy, always talking, wants to be with his guys, and understanding his next paycheck is going to be the most lucrative defensive paycheck in the history of the NFL. It's almost like, Micah, you wish you were just an NBA player, because it's just automatic. Once you are due for a contract within 2 hours of you are ready for that contract, you get it delivered, top of the line, no negotiations, this is what you get. And the fact of the matter is that we've been waiting so long, forget about even like last year, he could have got an extension. Let's just fast forward to this all season where Jerry and Micah sat down in like March. Yeah, we got everything worked out here. It's pretty much at the end of the rope. We're going to sign this deal. And then Jerry started saying things like, well, I don't even know who his agent is at this point. And, well, I thought we had a deal done. And Mike is telling you through his podcast, like, no, I have an agent. I'm not going to agree to a deal when it's Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones and my agent isn't there. It has to get run through those proper channels at this point. And then understanding that while days wait here, Joe, the price of the brick goes up every single day. You saw unbelievable contracts for pass rushers come through where maybe you could have got an even better deal in March. And now Mike is going like, you think that deal in March that we semi-agreed to is still valid today when guys like, Myles Garrett went through and, TJ Watt got their deals done? Like, no, that deal is gone. I want even more money now just because of the hassle of what you're putting me through. So let me ask you this question as we sit out there in Oxnard, California, where Jerry goes, I could be anywhere in the world. Yeah, you're in Oxnard. That's exactly where you're at. Does this deal get done immediately, or does Jerry just play this out like, this is such good news, man. I don't have to pay for any publicity. We lead every single telecast, SportsGrid, ESPN, NFL Network. I love this stuff.
Again, it's his element, man. He sat in front of that camera for 16 minutes talking about just rambling back and forth when he knows full well what his intentions are. He already knows how this is going to play out. He's just going to make it so it's all about Jerry and the Cowboys and top of mind. If nobody's talking about you, does anybody really care, right, Donnie? That's always been Jerry. Whether they're good or not good, he's going to make sure the Cowboys are top of mind and getting the headlines. And you know what? He's doing it again here right now before we even before they play one preseason game. Oh, and by the way, this is all happening with a new coach for the Cowboys, whose best defensive player is in total turmoil with the owner right now. It's hilarious here. It's so Jerry. But again, miraculously, he'll ride in last minute just before it really is, push comes to shove and come up with a deal. And he'll be like, see, I told you, don't lose any sleep over it.
It's not a badge of honor for a GM/owner to reset the market every time he has to sign one of his good players. That's just a sign of stupidity at this point. If you would have signed Micah earlier and we just signed Dak Prescott earlier, we don't have to have these conversations with Jerry Jones where he goes like, well, if we sign him too much money, we don't have enough for the rest of the team. You'd have plenty for the rest of the team if you sign them earlier. That's the whole point and the whole concept that we're trying to get through to Jerry Jones. But he's the owner, and whether or not he signs, Micah Parsons or who else, they're still going to make a ton of money being the biggest brand in the world for the Dallas Cowboys. But when you take a look at Micah Parsons, he's deserved this year. 4 seasons, 4 Pro Bowls, 3 times an All-Pro, 52.5 sacks. He's not Joel Embiid where you say, wow, that guy's really good, but maybe he only has a year left because his knees are bad. This guy's in his prime. Just get him paid, Joe.
Yeah, 27 years old. And again, you're crazy to think that Jerry doesn't know how this ends already. Like, Jerry is just pushing the envelope, kicking it down the road. He will eventually pay this man, and all will go away, and we'll laugh and be like, remember? Yeah, he did it to CeeDee Lamb, did it to Dak. This is how Jerry operates. It's kind of old at this point.
No doubt about it. In the next segment, Joe, we're going to touch on the Dallas Cowboys and what it could mean if Micah Parsons isn't there at the beginning of the season, and also double down on James Cook here getting his money, and then take a look at the Hall of Fame. New inductions just been in this weekend, right here on the Early Line. Micah Parsons, I think we can agree, Joe. Let's start here because I just want to get a quick answer from you. Micah Parsons will not be traded. Is that correct?
Oh, no, definitely not traded. He's got no, yeah, okay. This is the problem, though, right? Where is the leverage? You're going to sit out, and then what, Donnie? Then what?
Yeah, then what is, hey, I just want to make more money and I'm going to get $20 million. He's going to be in camp. They're going to sign him to the biggest deal we've ever seen for a defensive player. We just don't know the timeline. There's no need for this charade, but that's the way the Dallas Cowboys operate. So what I want to ask you this is, let's just say the rubber meets the road and they get real angry with each other and he doesn't show up for the first game. And how embarrassing would that be for Jerry Jones? Opening night in Philadelphia, banner drop here, and the biggest story is not the Philadelphia Eagles got their rings and they're going to see the trophy before we kick off the NFL season, but that Micah Parsons, his crown jewel, is not in the building to try to help them out, and then the Eagles wipe the floor with them right away. But if we do see that scenario wind up, how are we feeling about the Dallas Cowboys? Let's just say he sits out the first game for 4 games of the season before he gets signed. How are we feeling now, Joe, about the Dallas Cowboys?
Business as usual, Don, is what it feels like to me with this whole thing. He's never going to get, listen, Jerry knows if he truly wanted to trade him, he could get back a ridiculous haul for him, right? Especially at this point. But that's the leverage have. He also knows that, all right, you're not going to show up. You're going to forfeit the money this year, right? And what are you going to take a year off? You know you're going to be worth less money a year away from the game than anything else, Donnie. So in all likelihood, this is just Jerry being Jerry because he figures he's going to get the best deal done the longer that this goes and the more he is itching to get out on the field. It's a timing issue with Jerry. It always is. And he's done this with every star that came up for a contract that he's had over the last couple of decades. So I'm telling you right now, it will be in the 23rd hour right before kickoff, the week of the first game, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, see, I told you don't lose sleep over it. It's all good.
And the worst part about it is, too, it's like, when you have a beautiful car, let's just say like a Ferrari, and it's so expensive, there's only, a minimum amount of people that can actually buy that car. Whereas you say, hey, I got a nice Toyota Corolla here. It's got 30,000 miles on it. It's a little bit older. You might have a lot of people bidding for that car. Why I'm bringing that up is it's easy to say I want a trade. But what is fair market value for Micah Parsons for the Cowboys? Okay, an NFL team, Joe, 3 first-round picks, and then you're going to pay this guy more money than anybody's ever seen on the defensive side. Like, it's almost like saying, like, yes, everybody would love Micah, but nobody's paying that price for Micah Parsons, what fair market value would be in a trade.
Yeah. A boatload, a resetting of the franchise kind of boatload is what you get. These kind of position players heading into their prime at the end of a 50-year rookie deal, they don't come available, Donnie. This is, it just does not happen. That it's like, oh, well, Joe Burrow is not gonna. I mean, the kinds of guys that have gone to this point with other teams, they don't leave the organization. Like, the organization realizes we've got a franchise dude here. We're going to pay him, but we're not going to make it easy for him. They never, ever, ever do. But you could reset this franchise if you truly wanted to do it.
Yeah. And by the way, like, you never want to lose your great players. But if there was a world where you can make a Madden trade and get 3 ones from, I don't know, the New York Jets and not pay all that money, you're probably better off. But it's hard for the fan base to swallow. We just got rid of Micah Parsons in his prime because our owner was such a buffoon and didn't sign him 2 years earlier when he could have been much more affordable and we could have enjoyed him through his prime years. It just happens. Other business in the NFL that we touched on in the 7-7. James Cook, Buffalo Bills, great season last year. Running backs got to capitalize, got to make that money when he can. Other running backs are getting second contracts on top of those big contracts that we saw last year. That's Derrick Henry. And of course, the drill in Philadelphia with Saquon Barkley. James Cook showed up to camp. He just wants his money. They were close to an agreement, it felt like. Not anymore. Business decisions being made now for James Cook on, I'm not hurting myself when I'm up for a contract right now. I'll sit this one out until you pay me what I'm worth.
Yeah, listen, he's done everything right to this point, but you also had to figure if he doesn't have a contract after 8 days of practice heading into your first preseason game where you got to throw the pads on and you're getting risk of injury goes through the roof, you got to make a business decision, Donnie. I don't fault the player in this in any way, shape, or form. He's done everything right to this point and still is waiting for the Bills to show up and give him a contract here, which I think we can all agree he's probably worth it.
I mean, more than any other position, Joe, right? Like a running back, like that is probably the most interesting position to try to pay because, at any moment an injury is around the corner. The fact that they fall off a cliff immediately once they're down. Get your money, James Cook. We're going to talk NFL Hall of Fame next. Who's in next? We talked about the Hall of Fame preseason game last week. It was a big deal. Why? Because the NFL was back in our lives for the first preseason game. And Joe Ranieri, we got a full slate of preseason action coming up this week. I believe we got Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Fantastic. At least something that we can watch. And your favorite team will be playing, so you can check out some of those rookies here because, of course, not a lot of starters are going to play. But I have to tell you one thing. Let me ask you this, because we usually do the, ask the public a question and say, fade the public or not. This class that went in, which is, again, you make the Hall of Fame, you are an unbelievable football player. Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp, well deserving of going in. But is there a class that might have been more boring than this class that I don't think I tuned in or even saw a highlight clip of the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Great players. Eric Allen was an Eagle. I didn't care that any of these guys went in, Joe. Did you watch any of this at all?
Well, the Sterling Sharp, his introduction and his speech stole the show of the thing. He brings up his brother Shannon, and I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the house there. It was maybe
Wow.
the most clippable moment there is. I mean, everybody in the stand was crying. It was a pretty emotional moment with both of them. And even though his brother's going through all sorts of negative publicity, he still brought him up there and they embraced, and he told the story about how they grew up in rural Georgia. It was, that's the kind of stuff that will make this introduction, this class, Donnie, to your point, it not a lot. I mean, four of the greatest to ever play the game and lace them up, but there was only one induction here that really had the needle moving, and that was Sterling Sharp in his speech.
Skilp. Did we get any of those there from Shannon Sharp at that point? And by the way,
Mm.
Sterling Sharp, like we sometimes predate ourselves, and Sterling Sharp is not that old, but this guy
No.
was so unbelievable for Green Bay. And I always remember, like later in his career, he had the neck issues, which is why he had to retire. He had like
Yep.
the six like straps on the back of his helmet, just so his helmet couldn't go lower to force the neck down to have any more injuries. But if that guy had a complete, let's just say, career in the NFL, who knows what statistics Sterling Sharp should have put up.
Donnie, people don't even, I mean, I remember the hit that did it to him and ended, I mean, he retired when he was 29 because the only other option was, they were carting him. He wouldn't have walked off the field. It could have been dead. I mean, but at that point, up to that point, people don't realize him and Jerry Rice at that point, he was putting up Jerry Rice numbers. And if he would have played another 4 or 5 years, he'd be ridiculous, especially with Brett Favre throwing him the ball. So people don't realize that Jerry Rice and Sterling Sharp at that time were in the same conversation, number one and number two, Donnie, and people forget that.
Yeah, just a few short years later, what happens there in Green Bay? That Renaissance Reggie White comes to town. Brett Favre is there. They win a Super Bowl. He would have been a part of that team that picked up a Super Bowl easily there. He was that good of a wide receiver. But always, we sort of flip that page and say, well, what's next for the NFL? You got a pretty good class coming up here of the first-time guys that are on that ballot with a chance to go to the Hall of Fame. Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Larry Fitzgerald, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, and Julian Edelman. Now, I saw this list when it got put out. And immediately I said to myself, well, no doubt in my mind, Joe, Drew Brees is going to get in, and also Larry Fitzgerald. There's no argument. They're first ballot Hall of Famers. I don't even like Drew Brees, but I got to respect those numbers that he put up. Super Bowl champion, he's in. But I had to do some work, like just going back over some of the stats on some of these players. There's a few also on here that I don't know how you can argue against, like Frank Gore, third all-time in rushing yards. Jason Witten, second all-time in receiving yards for a tight end. This is a great class. And Phillip Rivers, who threw for a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns here. We might get a lot of guys in here.
This could be a huge class, except for Julian Edelman. Like, why is he even on the list at this point? Like, stop that. Like, just erase his name there. He's not even in the conversation with the guys that are on that list with him, including Larry Fitzgerald, where what if he actually would have played on a team that was, run with, a quality organization, quality ownership, right on down, what he could have been in the right spot there, but still managed to be the best, one of the best that ever played the game. And he did it the right way. But I mean, Gore was just, if nothing else, I mean, there should be a patch for longevity for playing as many years in that position as he did to rack up that many yards. I mean, how do you not all of these guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame? I guess the question is, are they first ballot? These are first time eligible guys. Did they all get in?
Yeah, you can't, because to me, on the outset, it should be an answer right away. Are you in or are you out? And I looked at it again, said those first two guys, and I said, well, how do you leave out like the guy who's in the top 5 in rushing all time when other guys down the list are in? Like Jason Witten was always there each and every week. Was he a dynamic player? Not necessarily, but look at the statistics and the touchdowns he put up. You're going to leave, the second best tight end in NFL history based on receiving yardage. He's not going to make the Hall of Fame. So it feels like a lot of these players certainly are going to go in, no doubt about it at that point. You know what I'm only upset with here? That Frank Gore didn't do a LeBron James and play long enough so his son could play with him in the NFL, Joe. That could have happened. Yeah. He could have done it.
Yeah. I believe when his son came out of college and was drafted, I believe Gore was even kicking that around. There was a conversation of him maybe even signing a contract and trying to get back in there so we could actually see that happen. But they don't, that position, when you think about it, that position for as long as he played it at the level he played it, teams were going out looking for him in the backfield there to be a part of their teams in depth and to help because he could still perform. That's very, very unique in this day and age in the NFL.
Certainly is. We'll see when the Hall of Fame gets up next year and how many of these players will certainly go in. How about this Fade the Public poll? Let's get down to business, people. Micah Parsons. The question we asked today on our Fade the Public poll at SportsGrid, if you want to follow along and also give your vote. Will the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons? There's only two options: yes and a no. There's no maybe out here. And it's pretty decisive, and rightfully so, at 81% of the public voting on a no that Micah Parsons will not be traded from the Dallas Cowboys. How do you feel about that poll, Joe, with the 80%? And how do you feel about Micah Parsons' possibilities of being traded from the Dallas Cowboys?
We know what the playbook is for Jerry Jones, and he is following it to a T, just like he has done with every other superstar that he's had on this team that required a new contract. And there is nothing simple and easy about it, especially the higher the profile player. It seems like the more we get Jerry in front of the cameras here, rambling on about who knows what, but the reality is this job will get done. This contract will get done. It ain't going to happen tomorrow, but it will happen at some point. So I agree with the public. I don't see Jerry trading a guy at 27 years old, about to enter his prime in one of the most important positions on a football team, a generational talent. Don't see that happening here.
Well, and the question I want to ask you too, Joe, is because sometimes it gets, convoluted. Like, what are we waiting on? It can't be about money, because we understand that he will be the highest paid player in the sport defensively in its history. Do you remember when it was, I think it was Adolfo Mensa, the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, when Justin Jefferson was up for a contract? He took the podium and goes, he's going to make more money than any wide receivers ever made in the NFL. We understand that. So, like, they had the hard parts out of the way. And it feels like the hard part is out of the way for the Dallas Cowboys. Are these escalator clauses? Is this length of contract? Is this, if I get injured, I want all my money? Or if you get injured, you get half of your money? It cannot be about you're going to be the highest paid player in the sport here defensively, and I don't think you're worth that much, as Jerry Jones might say. I don't think that's the negotiation. Is it length? Like, what is holding up this deal that we thought we had an agreement to between the two parties back in March?
Principle. That's what it's all about. It's principle, because you can't set precedent. And Jerry Jones knows this. And all he wants to do is make it known, especially to Micah Parsons and others, that, we're just not going to give you what you think you're worth. We simply because, tell me this, Donnie, what are the chances of them franchise tagging him? Maybe once, if not twice coming. You know what I'm saying? So Jerry knows leverage. He understands the situation, and he knows that Micah thinks he's worth $1 trillion. But the reality is, Jones is a businessman. He'll come to an agreement, but it'll be on Jerry's terms, not necessarily Micah's.
Again, you're at camp, you're in Oxnard, a little bit cooler, obviously, than, maybe having a training camp in Dallas. That's why they get away. But also, they're a global brand. So wherever they go, they're a star, like Notre Dame, right? We're going to play in Ireland. We're going to play in Florida. We're going to play in Tennessee. They always draw a big crowd. And he loves to feed off that crowd. But it's also an interesting part where usually the crowds just love Jerry Jones because he is a celebrity. Like, I've been to tons of Philadelphia Eagle Dallas Cowboy games, Sunday afternoon games, Monday Night Football games, monster games, you guessed it. And his box used to be right next to where I used to sit. And even the Eagles fans would give him a hard time, but they still wanted his autograph. Like, he's a mega superstar, and he loves the microphone. I even saw somebody ask, like, a poll question, like, do you think Jerry Jones, would rather win a Super Bowl next year, but he would have to give up his press abilities of giving press conferences? And you feel like he wants to win a Super Bowl. No way. No way would he give up the radio, give up television, give up hey, I'm going to walk down to the locker room or show up on the sideline in the middle of a game. He loves that concept of it. But doesn't he know, Joe, to the detriment of his team? Not because you want to make more money because you're more visible and you can't pay for that type of exposure you get. But if he just signed his players sooner, over the past 20 years, he would probably have multiple Super Bowls. Talent was never the question on the Cowboys. It was leadership, and it was also, can we get an extra player or two that can put us over the top? But, oh, no, now we can't afford these guys.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. And don't forget, with Jerry, it's the most successful Cowboys era was one in which Jerry was told to get out of the locker room and leave the players alone, and I'll handle it. And ever since that time, it's been all Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. And guess what? Yeah, not working out. I don't recall these issues back in the Aikman and Michael Irving days. And he tried to do it with Emmitt Smith. Remember how well that worked out? You think he would have learned his lesson, right? You think he would have learned his lesson when the team was like, you sign him and get him here, otherwise we're going to get killed. And sure enough, Emmitt Smith is back by game 3. This is who Jerry is. And at 185 years old, he's not changing his ways now, Donnie, for anybody, including Micah Parsons.
Yeah, that was a huge deal back in the 1990s. Like,
Yes.
Emmitt Smith was the running back. He wanted more money. And you want to talk about how a holdout goes perfectly for you? You were a Super Bowl team. You opened the season 0-2 without Emmitt. Like, I better get the guy and sign him to what he wants. They do that. What do they do that season, Joe? Go on to win a Super Bowl. But also in that Aikman, the triplets era, like Jimmy Johnson was a genius as a general manager, de facto head coach. Can you imagine your owners like, we're going to win so many Super Bowls and have so much fun? But my goodness, if they give Jerry more credit than maybe Jimmy or vice versa, that gets the ownership group upset, which was Jerry Jones. You couldn't live happily with winning a Super Bowl probably every 3 years with Jimmy Johnson, which was what's going to take place. Kicking that guy, I'm like, it's not him. It wants to be me. Like, no, nobody liked the move of getting rid of a Herschel Walker. But Jimmy Johnson goes, you know what? Watch how this plays out. I'm an unbelievable talent evaluator. I did this at the University of Miami. I'll do it here. And they were on their way to probably winning 5 out of 6. I got to get rid of that guy. It just doesn't work out. Look at these topics on the early line, man. We just keep rolling. We'll be right back.